He spent Christmas with his ex. I stayed silent, but left my ring on the table before I disappeared. When Bradley's mother called on Christmas morning asking why her son wasn't answering his phone, I knew exactly where he was. And it wasn't with family. The engagement ring caught the morning light as I placed it carefully on our dining table, next to the printed screenshots I'd spent all night organizing. My hands didn't shake. After 3 years together and 8 months engaged, I'd earned the right to a steady hand when walking away from a liar. 24 hours earlier, Bradley had kissed my forehead with what I thought was genuine regret. "Babe, I'm so sorry. My dad's in the hospital. Some kind of cardiac episode. I need to fly to Portland tonight." His eyes had been appropriately concerned. His voice weighted with just enough worry to seem authentic. "I'll be back before New Year's, I promise. We'll do our own Christmas then." I'd hugged him, told him to take care of his family, even packed him snacks for the airport. The perfect, understanding fiancé. The fool. But at 11:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, while I was alone in our apartment watching movies and eating Thai takeout, Melissa Parker's Instagram story shattered my carefully constructed reality. There was Bradley, wearing the sweater I'd given him for his birthday, laughing in front of a decorated tree in what was clearly not a hospital room. Melissa's caption read, "Best Christmas surprise ever. Some traditions are worth keeping." I took a screenshot, then another when she posted a second story 20 minutes later, Bradley's hand on her waist as they posed with champagne glasses, and a third at 1:03 a.m. Bradley asleep on a couch I didn't recognize, Melissa's caption simply home. I didn't call him, didn't text, didn't cry, though part of me felt like I should. Instead, I opened my laptop and started working. By 3 a.m., I had a complete timeline. Melissa Parker, age 30, Bradley's ex-girlfriend from college. They dated for 4 years before breaking up when Bradley moved to Seattle for work. That was 5 years ago, a year before he and I met. According to her Facebook, privacy settings laughably weak, they'd reconnected at a mutual friend's wedding in October. The same weekend, Bradley told me he was attending a financial planning conference in San Francisco. I found more, a charge on our shared credit card, the one we used for household expenses, for flowers delivered to a Portland address. Bradley's excuse in October. "My mom's birthday, babe. You know how she is about flowers." The address matched Melissa's apartment building. Restaurant charges in Portland spanning the past 3 months, always on weekends when Bradley claimed he was networking or visiting family. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? We were engaged. We were building a life together. I trusted him. The worst part wasn't discovering the lies. It was realizing how effortlessly he'd woven them into our daily life. How naturally deception had become his default language with me. At 6 a.m. on Christmas morning, I showered, dressed in my favorite blazer and jeans, and began systematically photographing everything. The ring on the table, the printed evidence spread out like a paper trail of betrayal. I took a video of myself, calm and composed, explaining exactly what I'd discovered and when. Then I emailed everything to my personal account and uploaded it to a private cloud folder. By 7 a.m., I'd contacted our landlord. The apartment lease was solely in my name. Bradley had moved in after we got engaged, but I'd never added him officially. "I need the locks changed today," I told the building manager. "Emergency situation. I'll pay whatever extra charge." By 9 a.m., I'd transferred half of our shared checking account, my half, into my individual account. The credit card I immediately reported as potentially compromised, requesting a replacement sent only to my office address. By 10 a.m., 3 large suitcases sat by the door, packed with everything Bradley owned that I could stand to touch. His clothes, his toiletries, his collection of financial journals, the ridiculous craft beer brewing kit he'd never used. I called a storage facility and rented a unit for 3 months, prepaid. At 10:30 a.m., Bradley's mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 10:47. This time I answered. "Hazel, honey, have you heard from Bradley? He's not answering his phone and we're getting worried. He was supposed to be here by now." The lie was so automatic for him that he'd even lied to his own mother. Or maybe she was in on it. At this point, I didn't care. "I'm sure he's fine, Catherine," I said, my voice steady. "But I actually don't know where Bradley is. You might want to try calling Melissa Parker in Portland. I believe that's where your son spent Christmas." The silence on the other end stretched for 5 full seconds. What? Your son isn't sick. And neither is his father, as far as I know. Bradley spent Christmas with his ex-girlfriend. I have photographs. Would you like me to email them to you, or would you prefer to ask him directly? Hazel, I don't understand. I left his engagement ring on our dining room table. His belongings will be in Storage Unit 247 at Seattle Secure Storage on Pine Street. The code is 4739. He has until January 15th to collect everything before I donate it all. Merry Christmas, Catherine. I hung up before she could respond. The locksmith arrived at noon. By 12:30, our apartment had new locks, and I was the only one with keys. I sat in the silence afterward, in the home that was now entirely mine, and felt nothing but cold, clear purpose. My phone started ringing at 1:15 p.m., Bradley's number. I watched it ring through to voicemail. It rang again immediately, and again. By 2 p.m., I had 17 missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. Babe, what's going on? Why did my mom just call me crying? Hazel, answer your phone. This is insane, you're overreacting. We need to talk about this like adults. Fine, be immature, I'm coming home. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, ordered pizza, and spent Christmas afternoon doing exactly what I wanted, which turned out to be researching Bradley's employer's ethics policies and making a list of everyone I knew in Seattle's tight-knit financial consulting community. At 6 p.m., I heard someone trying their key in my door, the scraping sound of it failing to turn, then pounding. Hazel, open this door. What the hell is going on? I turned up the volume on my movie and took another sip of wine. The pounding continued for 3 minutes before my phone rang again. This time, I answered on speakerphone. We need to talk, Bradley said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. No, I replied calmly. We really don't. You changed the locks? Are you serious right now? This is my home. Actually, it's not. Check the lease. Only my name. You were never added as a tenant. Legally, you were my guest. You're no longer welcome. Hazel, you're being crazy. Did you enjoy Christmas with Melissa? The sweater I gave you looked good in her Instagram stories. Really photogenic choice. The silence that followed was profound. I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations. The hospital story was particularly creative. Did Melissa help you come up with that one? Or was it all you? It's not what it looks like. Bradley, I have screenshots spanning 3 months. I have credit card statements. I have restaurant receipts from Portland. I have flower delivery confirmations. I have a complete timeline of every lie you've told me since October. Don't insult me further by pretending this was a one-time mistake. We need to talk about this face-to-face. We needed to talk about it before you lied to me on Christmas Eve. That opportunity has passed. Your belongings are in storage. I texted you the address and code. You have 3 weeks to collect everything. Don't contact me again. I hung up while he was still trying to argue. My phone buzzed with another call immediately, but this time it was Nina, my best friend and colleague. Please tell me the rumor I just heard isn't true, she said when I answered. Depends on the rumor. That you kicked Bradley out on Christmas Day after finding out he's been cheating with his ex? That rumor is accurate. Oh, honey, are you okay? Do you need me to come over? I'm fine, I said. And surprisingly, I meant it. Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm angry and I'm hurt. But mostly I'm just done. 3 years I gave him, Nina. 3 years of being understanding and supportive and flexible. And he repaid me by lying to my face and spending Christmas with another woman. What are you going to do? I looked at the list I'd been making on my laptop. Bradley Walsh, financial consultant at Whitman & Associates. His clients included 3 companies where I had professional connections. His reputation in Seattle's business community was built partially on networking events I'd helped him access through my own contacts. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Bradley Walsh really is, I said quietly, and then I'm going to forget he ever existed. Bradley's calls stopped around midnight. The sudden silence should have been a relief. But I knew him well enough to recognize it for what it was. Regrouping. He was probably with Melissa, spinning some version of events where I was the villain, the crazy ex-fiancé who overreacted to a simple misunderstanding. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I spent the hours methodically documenting everything I'd contributed to Bradley's career over the past 3 years. The introduction to Marcus Chen, CEO of Tech Vision Solutions, who became Bradley's largest client after I seated them together at a networking dinner I'd organized. The recommendation I'd written for Bradley when he applied to Whitman & Associates. The countless times I'd proofread his proposals, coached him through client presentations, even helped him prepare for his Series 65 exam. By dawn on December 26th, I had a comprehensive file. More importantly, I had a plan. At 9 a.m., I called my company's legal counsel. I need to understand something about professional ethics, I told Richard Foster, who'd been with our firm for 15 years. If someone uses business connections gained through their partner's professional network, and then that relationship ends badly, what are the ethical implications? Richard listened as I explained the situation, carefully avoiding specifics. Technically, once an introduction is made, the professional relationship exists independently, he said. However, if the connection was facilitated under false pretenses, or if there was unethical behavior involved, the person who made the introduction has every right to inform their contacts about changed circumstances. What if that person also wanted to inform the unethical party's employer about behavior that might reflect poorly on their company? As long as everything shared is factually accurate and documented, that's simply providing relevant information. Companies have a legitimate interest in knowing when their employees engage in behavior that could damage the firm's reputation. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I opened my email and began writing. The first message went to Marcus Chen. I kept it professional, brief, and devastatingly factual. Marcus, I'm reaching out to inform you of a personal situation that may affect our professional relationship. My engagement to Bradley Walsh ended on December 25th, after I discovered he'd been maintaining a relationship with another woman while lying to me about his whereabouts. I have documented evidence of this deception spanning several months. I wanted you to be aware of this, as I introduced Bradley to you through my professional network. I leave it to your judgment how this information affects your business relationship with him. I've attached relevant documentation should you wish to review it. Please let me know if you need any clarification. I sent similar messages to 3 other business contacts who'd become Bradley's clients through my connections. Then I drafted a more formal communication to Whitman and Associates Ethics Committee. My phone rang at 10:30 a.m. Nina, Bradley just showed up at the office looking for you, she said. Security stopped him at the front desk, but he's demanding to speak with you. He looks rough, Hazel, like he hasn't slept. Should I tell them to call the police? Tell them to inform him that I'm working from home today and have no interest in speaking with him. If he continues to cause a disturbance, they should absolutely call the police. Consider it done. Also, you should know, people are talking. About half the office saw him downstairs making a scene. Do you want me to address it? No need. The truth will spread on its own. Bradley's very good at creating his own disasters. 45 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Melissa. We need to talk. I stared at it for a long moment, then replied, No, we don't. You don't understand the situation. Bradley and I have history, real history. What you and he had was never going to last. The audacity was almost impressive. I typed back, You're absolutely right. A relationship built on lies was never going to last. Congratulations on winning a liar. I hope you enjoy discovering all the ways he'll lie to you, too. He never stopped loving me. You were just a placeholder until we found our way back to each other. Something about that message crystallized my anger into something sharper, more focused. I opened my laptop and accessed the credit card statements again. There, in black and white, were charges that told a different story than the one Melissa was trying to sell. Interesting perspective, I wrote back. Does your real history include the fact that Bradley bought you flowers using money from our shared household account? Or that he took you to dinner with funds earmarked for our wedding? Did he mention that we were shopping for houses together while he was telling you whatever story got you to take him back? I attached 3 months of credit card statements and highlighted the relevant charges. He lied to both of us, Melissa. The difference is I'm smart enough to walk away. You're apparently determined to sign up for more. She didn't respond. By afternoon, the ripple effects had begun. Marcus Chen called me directly. Hazel, I just read your email. I'm sorry you're going through this. For what it's worth, I've decided to end my contract with Bradley effective immediately. I've built my business on trust and integrity. I can't work with someone who lacks both. I appreciate you letting me know, Marcus. There's something else. Bradley called me an hour ago, very agitated, claiming you were sabotaging his career out of spite. He wanted me to know that you were making false accusations. I informed him that documented facts aren't accusations, and that his personal behavior absolutely affects my decision to work with him professionally. He didn't take it well. I felt a grim satisfaction. How didn't he take it well? He threatened legal action for tortious interference. I explained that I'm terminating our contract based on his documented behavior, not anyone's interference, and suggested he consult with an attorney before making threats he can't back up. The call ended shortly after that. After Marcus hung up, I received similar calls from 2 other contacts. Both were terminating their professional relationships with Bradley. Both mentioned that he'd called them, angry and defensive, which had only reinforced their decisions. By evening, I'd received an email from Whitman and Associates HR director requesting a call at my earliest convenience. I scheduled it for the following morning. That night, Catherine Walsh called again. Hazel, please. I know my son made a terrible mistake, but he loves you. He's devastated. Can't you at least talk to him? Catherine, with respect. Bradley lied to you too. He told you he was visiting family for Christmas while he was actually with another woman. Do you really believe this was just a mistake? He said it was a moment of weakness, that Melissa manipulated him. He's a 32-year-old man, Catherine, not a child. He made conscious choices for months. He planned lies, executed them, and never once considered how his actions would affect me. That's not weakness. That's character. But the wedding, you two were planning a life together. The wedding was scheduled for April. I've already contacted the venue and vendors. Everything's canceled. I'm fortunate that we hadn't sent invitations yet. Consider this conversation your official notice that there will be no wedding. Hazel, please don't do this. I didn't do this, Catherine. Your son did. Goodbye. I blocked her number after hanging up. December 27th brought a certified letter from Bradley's attorney. I read it carefully, noting the legal threats about defamation and interference with business relationships. Then I called my own attorney, Sarah Mitchell, who I'd worked with when purchasing my condo. This is bluster, Sarah said after reviewing the letter. You've shared factual, documented information with people who have a legitimate interest in knowing it. That's not defamation. And you haven't interfered with his business relationships. His own behavior did that. I'll draft a response, but honestly, Hazel, I doubt this will go anywhere. His attorney is probably trying to scare you into silence. I don't scare easily. I'm learning that. How are you holding up? I'm angry, but I'm also clear-headed about what I'm doing and why. Bradley spent 3 years building his career partly on my connections and support. He lied to me, cheated on me, and assumed I'd never find out or never have the strength to do anything about it if I did. He was wrong on both counts. Just keep documenting everything. Don't engage with him directly. Let the facts speak for themselves. That afternoon, I met with Whitman and Associates HR director via video call. I presented everything I'd documented, including the credit card statements showing Bradley had used shared funds for his affair, the timeline of his lies, and the evidence of his deception. I'm not trying to get him fired, I explained. But I thought your firm should be aware that one of your employees engaged in significant financial impropriety and sustained deception. How you handle that is your decision. The HR director's face remained professionally neutral. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention. I can't discuss what actions we might take, but I can assure you that we take ethics violations seriously. 2 days later, Nina forwarded me a screenshot from LinkedIn. Bradley Walsh had updated his profile, seeking new opportunities in financial consulting. Did they fire him? Nina asked when I called her. I don't know, but whether they fired him or he resigned, the result is the same. His reputation in Seattle's financial community is damaged. Word spreads fast in our industry. Are you sure you want to do this? I mean, I'm completely on your side, but this is thorough. Nina, he lied to me for months. He spent Christmas with another woman after lying to both me and his own mother. He used our shared money to finance his affair, and when I found out and ended things, his first instinct wasn't remorse. It was to threaten legal action and try to paint me as vindictive. Yes, I'm sure. The next week brought an unexpected development. Melissa Parker called me. You were right, she said, her voice small. About everything. I didn't respond, letting the silence stretch. Bradley moved in with me after you kicked him out. At first, everything seemed perfect. We were finally together, finally able to be honest about our relationship, but then I found charges on his credit card that didn't make sense. Restaurant bills from Seattle dated after Christmas. And when I asked him about them, he got defensive and angry. So he's already lying to you. I think he's been seeing someone else, another someone else. And I realized, if he lied to you about me and lied to me about you, why wouldn't he lie to both of us about a third person? What do you want from me, Melissa? I don't know. Maybe just to say I'm sorry. You tried to warn me, and I was horrible to you. I thought I was fighting for love, but I was really just fighting for a liar. I accept your apology. Now leave me alone. Whatever Bradley does next is your problem, not mine. I hung up feeling oddly empty. The vindication I'd expected from Melissa's admission didn't materialize. Instead, I just felt tired. January arrived with Seattle's typical gray drizzle, matching my mood as I settled into the reality of my new life. The apartment felt different now, larger somehow, but also more peaceful. I'd rearranged furniture, donated the couch where Bradley used to watch football, replaced the bedding. Small acts of reclamation that helped erase his presence from my space. Work became my sanctuary. The marketing campaign I'd been developing for months launched to excellent reception, and my boss mentioned a potential promotion to senior director. For the first time in years, I could focus entirely on my career without splitting my attention between my own ambitions and supporting someone else's. But Bradley wasn't done making my life complicated. On January 8th, I received a call from a detective with the Seattle Police Department. Ms. Morrison, I'm Detective Park. Bradley Walsh has filed a report claiming you've stolen property belonging to him. He's alleging that you refused to return personal belongings and changed locks to prevent him from accessing his possessions. Can you tell me your side of the story? I pulled up the documentation I'd carefully maintained. Detective, the apartment lease is solely in my name. Mr. Walsh was never a legal tenant. When our relationship ended on December 25th, I placed all of his belongings in storage and provided him with the location and access code via text message. I have screenshots of that message, time-stamped December 25th at 2:47 p.m. He had until January 15th to collect everything before I planned to donate it. He claims you've kept items of significant value. Everything he owned that was in my apartment went into storage. If he's claiming I kept something, I'd like to know specifically what he believes is missing. I documented everything I packed. He mentioned an engagement ring. I almost laughed. Detective, I'm the one who returned the engagement ring. I left it on our dining room table when I ended the relationship. If he's looking for it, he should check his storage unit. I placed it in a box with his other jewelry and watches. This was a lie, but a calculated one. The ring was actually in my safe deposit box at the bank. I'd photographed it on the table before leaving on Christmas Day, but had retrieved it later. It was evidence, and I wasn't giving it back until I was certain Bradley had no legal recourse. I see. Would you be willing to provide documentation of what you've described? Absolutely. I can email you everything within the hour. Photos of his belongings packed in suitcases, the text message providing storage information, receipts for the storage rental, and the lease agreement showing the apartment is solely in my name. After I sent everything to Detective Park, I called Sarah Mitchell. He's trying to claim I stole from him? That's insane. It's also predictable, Sarah said calmly. He's lost his job, his reputation is damaged, and he's probably facing financial difficulties. He's lashing out. The police report is likely an attempt to create leverage. Maybe he thinks you'll be scared enough to back off from sharing information about his behavior. That's not going to happen. I know, which is why I'm not worried. You've documented everything meticulously. The worst-case scenario is that this becomes a civil matter, and even then, you're on solid legal ground. Detective Park called back 2 hours later. Ms. Morrison, after reviewing your documentation, I don't see any evidence of theft. Mr. Walsh was informed that his belongings were in storage and given clear instructions for retrieval. The fact that he chose not to collect them by the deadline you specified isn't a criminal matter. I'm closing this report. Thank you, Detective. Off the record, I've been doing this job for 15 years. Your documentation is some of the best I've seen in a domestic situation. Whatever happened between you two, you've protected yourself well. That same week, Nina forwarded me a job posting. Look familiar? It was Bradley's old position at Whitman & Associates, now listed as an open position. The salary range was posted, and it was $15, out in dollars more than what Bradley had been making. They really did fire him, Nina said when I called her, or forced him to resign, which amounts to the same thing. Hazel, this is getting serious. He's lost his job and probably won't find another one in Seattle easily. People are talking. I heard through the grapevine that at least 4 firms have decided he's too much of a reputation risk. Good. Good? Hazel, I'm worried about you. What if he escalates? What if he shows up at your apartment again? I've already thought about that. Building security has his photo and instructions not to let him in. I've documented every communication attempt. If he shows up at my door again, I'll call the police. This doesn't feel like you. You're not vindictive. This level of thoroughness. It's not who you are. I was silent for a moment, considering. You're right. I'm not vindictive. But I'm also not going to be a victim. Bradley assumed I'd cry and take him back eventually. He assumed I'd be too embarrassed or heartbroken to tell anyone what happened. He underestimated me, and now he's facing consequences for that miscalculation. That's not vindictiveness, Nina. That's self-respect. February brought Valentine's Day, and with it, a moment of unexpected weakness. I found myself looking at old photos, Bradley and me at the coast last summer, laughing at Pike Place Market, dressed up for my company's holiday party. We'd looked happy. Had it all been a lie? Or had there been something real that he'd destroyed with his choices? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a Seattle area code. I know you think you've won, but you've destroyed a good man's life over a mistake. I hope you can live with yourself. I didn't recognize the number, but the message was clearly from someone in Bradley's orbit. I didn't respond. Instead, I screenshot the message and added it to my documentation file. The next day, my car had a flat tire. The mechanic showed me the slash marks, definitely intentional. I filed a police report and had security footage from my parking garage pulled. The footage showed a figure in a hoodie approaching my car at 2 a.m., but the face wasn't visible. We can't definitively identify anyone from this footage, the police officer said, but given the context of your recent breakup, I'd recommend increasing your security measures. I installed a dash cam with parking mode, changed my routine, started parking in different spots, added another layer of awareness to my daily life that made me equal parts angry and vigilant. In mid-February, Sarah Mitchell called with news. Bradley's attorney has reached out about settling everything. They're proposing that you return the engagement ring, agree not to discuss the relationship publicly, and sign a mutual non-disparagement agreement. In exchange, Bradley would drop all claims and agree to no contact. What do you think? I think he knows he doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, and this is his attempt to salvage some control over the narrative. The question is whether you want to engage or just let the situation die naturally. I thought about the ring sitting in my safe deposit box, about the satisfaction of knowing Bradley was out there, unemployed, and unable to rebuild his reputation, about the energy I was spending maintaining this level of defensive vigilance. Counter with this. I'll return the ring and agree to no further contact, but I won't sign any agreement that prevents me from truthfully answering questions about what happened if asked. And he needs to agree to repay his half of our shared expenses that he used during his affair. I calculated at approximately $3,800. He'll never agree to the repayment. Then we don't have a deal. He used our household money to finance his affair. That's theft as far as I'm concerned. 2 weeks later, Sarah called back. You're not going to believe this. He agreed to everything, including the $3,800 repayment in installments over 6 months. I was genuinely surprised. Why would he agree to that? My guess? He's desperate to make this go away. Maybe he's found a job opportunity that's contingent on cleaning up his reputation. Maybe Melissa is putting pressure on him. Whatever the reason, he wants this settled. Then let's settle it. The settlement meeting was scheduled for March 15th at Sarah's office. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a black blazer and heels, carrying the engagement ring in its original box inside a padded envelope. Bradley was already there when I walked into the conference room. He looked terrible. Thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a defensive hunch to his shoulders that was new. Melissa sat beside him, which surprised me. Her presence felt like a statement, though I wasn't sure what she was trying to say. Let's keep this professional, Sarah said, taking her seat across from Bradley's attorney, a middle-aged man named Patterson, who looked deeply uncomfortable with his client. We have a settlement agreement that both parties have reviewed. Before we sign, Mr. Walsh has requested an opportunity to speak directly to Ms. Morrison. I looked at Sarah, who shrugged slightly. It's not required, but he's asked. It's your call. Fine. 2 minutes. Bradley cleared his throat, glancing at Melissa before speaking. Hazel, I know I hurt you. I know I lied and I messed up. But what you've done to me since Christmas, destroying my career, turning people against me, publicly humiliating me, that's gone too far. I made a mistake. But you've been cruel. The words hung in the air between us. I felt the familiar anger rising, but underneath it was something else. Pity, maybe, or just exhaustion. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. You did hurt me, but everything that's happened to you since Christmas, you did that to yourself. I didn't make you lie to me for 3 months. I didn't make you use our shared money to finance your affair. I didn't make you spend Christmas with another woman while lying to your own mother. I didn't tell your clients to drop you. They made that decision after learning who you really are. I didn't fire you from your job. Your company did that after reviewing evidence of your ethical violations. You poisoned people against me. I told the truth. That's not poison, Bradley. That's consequences. You assumed I'd be too heartbroken or too weak to do anything when you got caught. You assumed I'd cry and eventually take you back because I loved you too much to let go. You were wrong. I loved you. No. You loved the idea of me, the understanding girlfriend who supported your career and didn't ask too many questions, the person who made your life easier while you did whatever you wanted. But you didn't love me enough to be honest. You didn't love me enough to break up with me before starting something with Melissa. You loved yourself more than you ever loved me. Melissa shifted uncomfortably in her seat. As for being cruel, I continued, let me tell you what would have been cruel. Cruel would have been staying silent, letting you marry me while you were still lying, wasting more years of my life on someone who saw me as convenient rather than cherished. What I did was protect myself and make sure you couldn't do this to anyone else without people knowing who you really are. I've lost everything because of you. You lost everything because of you. I'm just the one who made sure everyone knew why. Patterson, Bradley's attorney, cut in. Perhaps we should move to signing the agreement. We signed in silence. I handed over the engagement ring without ceremony. Bradley's hand shook slightly as he took it. I wondered if he'd give it to Melissa or pawn it. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. The settlement stipulated that Bradley would pay me $633 monthly for 6 months to repay the shared funds he'd misused. We agreed to no contact except as necessary to facilitate the repayment. I agreed not to proactively share information about our relationship, but retained the right to answer truthfully if asked. It was done. 3 years together, 8 months engaged, reduced to signatures on legal documents and a monthly payment plan. As I stood to leave, Melissa spoke for the first time. Are you happy now? I looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed tired too, worn down by whatever the past 3 months with Bradley had taught her about the man she'd fought to keep. I'm not happy, I said honestly. But I'm no longer in a relationship built on lies. That's worth more than happiness right now. Good luck, Melissa. You're going to need it. I walked out without looking back. That night, Nina came over with wine and takeout. How do you feel? Empty? Relieved? I'm not sure. It's like finishing a book you thought you loved and then realizing the ending ruins everything that came before. I keep wondering what was real. Did he ever actually love me? Were there moments that were genuine, or was it all performance? Does it matter? I don't know. Maybe not. The relationship I thought I had doesn't exist anymore, regardless of what was real. I'm mourning something that probably wasn't even real to begin with. But you won, right? He lost his job, his reputation, everything. You got your revenge. I sipped my wine, considering. I don't think I won. I think I just refused to lose. There's a difference. April arrived with cherry blossoms and the wedding date that would never happen. I'd expected it to be hard, but instead I spent the day at a spa with Nina, getting the couple's massage and champagne package I'd originally planned as a bachelorette party activity. We laughed about terrible bridesmaid dress options I'd been considering and toasted to dodging bullets. Have you heard anything from Bradley? Nina asked as we sat in the relaxation room. The first payment came through on time. $633. 33 years. Direct deposit. We haven't communicated otherwise. And Melissa? No idea. Not my problem. You've gotten really good at that. Deciding things aren't your problem. 3 months of therapy helped. Dr. Richardson says I had a tendency to take responsibility for other people's emotions and choices. I'm working on having better boundaries. The therapy had been Nina's suggestion in February. At first, I'd resisted. I was handling everything fine, wasn't I? But my therapist helped me recognize that handling it and healing from it were different things. You're entitled to your anger, Dr. Richardson had told me during our 3rd session. What happened to you was a betrayal, but anger can't be your permanent state. Eventually, you need to process the grief underneath it. The grief had been harder to face than the anger. Grief for the relationship I'd believed in, the future I'd planned, the trust I'd given so freely. Anger was energizing, purposeful. Grief just hurt. By May, I'd started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with men from apps that Nina helped me set up. It was strange, sitting across from strangers and trying to figure out if I could trust them, knowing what I now knew about how easily people could lie. You're different now, Nina observed one evening after I'd returned from a particularly awkward first date. More guarded. Is that bad? Not bad, just different. The Hazel from a year ago would have given that guy the benefit of the doubt about the weird story about his ex. Tonight's Hazel called bullshit and left before dessert. Tonight's Hazel knows what lies sound like. The 2nd monthly payment came through on May 1st, then the 3rd on June 1st. Each payment felt like a small vindication, a monthly reminder that I'd stood up for myself and won tangible restitution. In mid-June, I ran into Marcus Chen at a networking event. Hazel, good to see you. How have you been? I'm well, thanks. Busy with work. We just landed a major campaign. I heard. Congratulations. He paused, seeming to debate saying more. I also heard, through the grapevine, that Bradley Walsh left Seattle. Moved back to Portland, apparently. Working for some small firm that probably doesn't know his history. Good for him, I said, and meant it. Having him out of the city made everything easier. You handled that whole situation with remarkable composure. A lot of people in your position would have either fallen apart or let it consume them. You did neither. I had moments of both, honestly. But eventually I realized that falling apart gave him more power than he deserved, and letting it consume me meant he was still controlling my life. I chose a third option, making sure there were consequences and then moving on. The business community here has a long memory. People remember who behaves with integrity and who doesn't. You've built a reputation for both integrity and strength. That's valuable. After Marcus moved on to other conversations, I stood alone for a moment, processing. A reputation for integrity and strength. 6 months ago, I'd had a reputation as Bradley Walsh's understanding fiancé, the supportive partner who helped him build his career. I'd traded that identity for something harder earned but more authentically mine. The fourth payment hit my account on July 1st. Only 2 more to go. On July 20th, I received an unexpected email from Melissa Parker. Hazel, I don't expect you to respond to this, and I'll understand if you delete it without reading. But I needed you to know that you were right about everything. Bradley and I broke up last month. I found out he'd been lying to me about finances, about where he was spending his time, about contact with other women. The man I thought I was fighting for never existed. I'm sorry I was cruel to you in January. I was so convinced I knew the truth, but you were the one who actually saw him clearly. I hope you're doing well, Melissa. I read it twice, then closed my laptop without responding. She was right. I didn't need to respond. Her realization, her regret, her growth, none of it required my participation or forgiveness. She'd made her choices, just as I'd made mine. The 5th payment arrived August 1st. 1 more to go. By late August, I'd been seeing someone for about a month. James, a software engineer I'd met through a friend of Nina's. He was kind, straightforward, and refreshingly honest about his dating history and what he was looking for. We took things slowly, and I appreciated his patience with my questions and need for transparency. You're a lot more cautious than most people I date, he observed one evening over dinner. Is that a problem? Not at all, just an observation. It makes me think you've been hurt before. I was engaged until last December. He was cheating on me for months before I found out. That explains some things. How did you handle it? I smiled slightly. Thoroughly. Good. The people who hurt us should face consequences. Too many people get away with terrible behavior because their victims are too kind or too scared to push back. I liked James more in that moment than I had in all our previous dates combined. September 1st brought the final payment from Bradley, $633.33, right on schedule. I stared at the notification on my phone for a long moment, feeling something shift inside me. It was done. Every cent accounted for, every obligation fulfilled. That evening, I transferred the full $300 to $800 to a nonprofit supporting domestic abuse survivors. It felt right somehow, turning money that had been used to finance lies into something that could help people escape from much worse situations. I never heard from Bradley Walsh again. By October, James and I had progressed to meeting each other's friends and making plans more than a week out. He met Nina, who gave him her approval with a text that read, "He's a good one. Don't let the Bradley experience ruin this." I'd learned to catch myself when old fears surfaced, when James mentioned plans with friends, and I felt a spike of anxiety about whether he was telling the truth, when he was late responding to texts, and part of me wondered if he was with someone else. The difference now was that I recognized those reactions as remnants of trauma, not intuition. I could check them against reality instead of letting them control me. "You're different than when we first met," James told me one Sunday morning as we had coffee on my balcony. "More relaxed. Is that good or bad?" "Definitely good. You seemed like you were bracing for impact every time we talked. Now you just seem present." Dr. Richardson had said something similar in our most recent session. "You've done the work of processing betrayal without letting it define you. That's not easy. Most people either stay stuck in anger or swing too far the other way into denial. You've found something healthier, acceptance without excusing what happened." In November, I received a promotion at work, Senior Director of Marketing, with a salary increase that meant I could finally afford the house I'd been looking at. The timing felt symbolic. A year ago, I'd been planning a wedding and looking at houses with Bradley. Now I was buying a house alone, on my own terms. with money I'd earned without needing to support someone else's career. The closing was scheduled for December 15th, 10 days before the anniversary of discovering Bradley's betrayal. I signed the papers alone, accepted the keys alone, and felt genuinely proud of what I'd accomplished alone. Nina helped me move in on a clear December Saturday. As we unpacked boxes in my new kitchen, she said, "You know what I haven't heard you say in months?" "What?" "Bradley's name. You used to mention him constantly, even if it was just to say you weren't thinking about him. Now you just don't." She was right. Somewhere between the settlement and the final payment and the new relationship and the promotion and the house purchase, Bradley Walsh had faded from the center of my thoughts. He was a chapter I'd closed, not a story that still had power over me. On Christmas Eve, I hosted a small dinner party at my new house. Nina and her husband James, a few colleagues, Dr. Richardson and her wife. As we raised glasses to toast, I felt a profound gratitude for the people around my table, all of whom had supported me through the worst year of my life and celebrated with me as I rebuilt. "To new beginnings," Nina said. "To choosing yourself," Dr. Richardson added. "To having the courage to walk away from what doesn't serve you," I said, meeting each person's eyes, "and to building something better from what's left." Later that night, after everyone had gone and James had kissed me goodnight with plans to meet tomorrow for Christmas dinner, I stood in my living room looking at the tree I'd decorated myself. A year ago, I'd been alone on Christmas Eve for the first time in 3 years, discovering that my entire relationship had been a lie. A year later, I was alone again, but the solitude felt different. Chosen rather than inflicted. Peaceful rather than devastating. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My heart jumped for a second before I opened it. "Hi, Hazel, this is Catherine Walsh. I wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas and tell you I'm sorry for how everything happened. I hope you're doing well. You deserve so much better than what my son gave you." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Thank you, Catherine. I hope you're well too. Merry Christmas." I blocked the number afterward, not out of anger, but out of preservation. That chapter was closed, and I didn't need even well-meaning connections to the past reopening it. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. The woman looking back at me was recognizable but different. Stronger, clearer-eyed, more certain of her own worth. She'd been broken and had refused to stay broken. She'd been betrayed and had refused to let betrayal define her. Bradley Walsh had tried to make me small, accommodating, willing to overlook his lies for the sake of keeping peace. Instead, he'd made me someone who knew her worth too well to accept anything less than honesty and respect. I'd left an engagement ring on a table a year ago and walked away from a lie. Now I lived in a house I'd bought myself, built a career I was proud of, surrounded myself with people who actually valued me, and dated someone who treated honesty as a baseline requirement rather than an optional extra. Bradley was somewhere in Portland, probably telling his new colleagues some version of events where he was the victim of a vindictive ex. Melissa was presumably somewhere having learned an expensive lesson about the men she chose. Catherine was probably spending Christmas with her son, wondering where she'd gone wrong in raising him. And I was here, in my own home, genuinely content for the first time in longer than I could remember. That wasn't revenge. That was just a better life than the one I'd almost settled for. The people who hurt us don't get to write our endings. They barely earn their place in our chapters. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't making them pay. It's building something so much better than what they offered that looking back becomes impossible. I'd left a ring on a table and walked away in silence. I'd walked toward everything I actually deserved.